We're going to start talking about youth within the non-league game now. We've sort of compiled a list for this particular show of players that have gone from non-league to the Premier League. The likes of Chris Smalling from Maidstone United to Fulham. Charlie Austin made the move from Poole Town to Swindon, done very well. Obviously, the Jamie Vardy and the so-called Jamie Vardy effect that is now happening across the non-league, making the move to Fleetwood and then to Leicester, and obviously winning the Premier League title, and now appearing for England in the summer as well. Stan Collymore, Ian Wright, and this brings us on nicely to the last name on the list that we've compiled, Ashley Naddison, who's obviously played for Horley this year and now moved to Fleetwood for next season into the Football League. 99 goals in 2 seasons in the Combined Counties League. First of all, what's it like to manage somebody that is scoring that amount of goals, getting that amount of attention, and most probably, is going to move to a bigger club next season? What's it like to manage that player and also fit them into the team and keep their feet on the ground?
To be honest, Ashley was easy to manage because he's a good lad, good guy. Exactly what you want in any footballer, but obviously he's got raw talent in abundance, and he deserves the chance he's got. If I'm going to be honest, I think there's a lot of non-league players out there that are certainly good enough to make the step up, but unfortunately, perhaps the scouts are starting to realise at the higher level now that they need to come this low down and have a look. Perhaps they haven't had the opportunity before, again, funding, or think that they got to look at a higher level. But no, we've had Ashley 4 years at the club. I was youth team manager when he first came along. It was quite clear to see that he had a lot of potential then. I played him centre-back, probably scored a hat-trick, I think, that day. Play him any position on the pitch, he's the best player apart from goalkeeper. And without a doubt, I think having another season with us was his best choice that he made, because he had a lot of clubs that wanted him at the beginning of this season, just finished. And we had a long chat with him and said, you've scored 42 goals, brilliant, do it again, do it for a second year, prove that you're not just a one-hit wonder. The loyalty the boys got, he stuck with us. And I think, got the rewards from staying where he was.
Do you think that now that he has moved on, do you think that was the best move for him? Because we've talked earlier about guys from Merstham that have gone up to a couple of leagues and gone into the Vanarama conference. It's quite a big jump to go to Fleetwood Town. Is that something that you think he's going to cope with?
Again, yeah, you're right. It's a massive jump. I can't make that decision. He's had scouts look at him. He's been on trials. They want to take him on. He may well have gone into Ryman Prem and, failed miserably. We don't know, do we? But he's got this opportunity. It's down to him now to train hard and hopefully, get himself in the first team and get a few appearances.
Let's throw the question out there to all of you guys. How do you use your youth system? We've obviously mentioned at the top of the show that, Junior, you've use it very well. Your club's renowned for bringing players through. How important is it in non-league football to bring those guys through from the under-16s, under-18s?
Well, especially with us. This season coming up, our 15th season doing the academy as well. It is important because, like Ant's saying now, I think what strikes me is Ant's saying, he had a conversation with Ashley. Ashley could have, jumped ship, so to speak, for £50, £60 and played in Ryman South or Ryman. But I'd always advise any youngster, you need to be playing football. You need to be playing. Doesn't matter what level you're playing at. Even the boys that come out our academy at Dulwich, I'm saying to them, if we now try and get them out on loan, we try and get them in the county leagues and the Ryman South, because there's no point in sitting down watching Dulwich Hamlet, playing in front of 2,000. It's great, but you need to develop your career, and I think that's just massive to Ant and what the boys are doing over there at Horley, because for a goal scorer to score 99 goals and still stay at Horley, he's reaped his rewards. And for me, I'll always say to youngsters, you need to be playing football. You need to be playing, because no one's going to want somebody who's sitting in the stand.
Yeah, I've got to echo that. Actually, before I read the agenda before we came in, and my kind of contentious point I was going to mention was that was exactly that these youngsters have to play. I won't name and shame clubs. There's a layer of clubs at the bottom end of the professional scale that keep kids there not playing football at the wrong age, and there's more so for their own purposes. We deal 2 or 3 clubs and they'll have 3-4 sides that are 17, 18 years old, and the buzzword is development. But actually, Wayne Rooney was banging in goals for England at 17. And in reality, these boys need to be out at the most relevant club or level they can play at to develop. So really a good club like Dulwich would have affiliated teams at each level, and they'll try and place that person at the right level where they can play regular football, and that gives them their best chance of going forward.
I mean, if I can speak on behalf of my club, Crawley Wasps, that as well as I'll be having a ladies section, have an extremely strong youth section. We're actually celebrating our 25th year anniversary as an all women's and all girls football club. We've had plenty of bottles of champagne. It's a fantastic achievement. I know in some of the clubs in here they've got over 100 years history, but for an all women and all ladies club to reach a 25-year milestone is something as a club we are extremely proud of. In terms of our club and in terms of our level, the youth structure is for me absolute paramount to building a strong ladies senior section. Many of our players who now play in our front side or in our first team have started through our youth structure, and as the women's game professionalises, the whole focus on developing ultimately elite women footballers has become a very big focus, certainly for the for the FA and the elite sports unit of the FA, and there's a very well structured route through now. Through clubs, through professional clubs, and certainly wherever we can, building on the point earlier on, we would always look to encourage high quality players that we have at our club to progress as far as they can, and to play more senior levels of football. We've just recently lost our 25 goal a season striker, Rebecca Carter, who has just gone and signed for Lewis in the Women's Premier League. So that's a disappointment to us, but again, I make the point, it's something we as a club are proud of, that we've got players that have come through our structures, that have played at our level, and then have been seen to be good enough to go on and play at more senior levels.
What changes at this level could we see introduced to the game that would better develop these players? Are we at a stage where we are getting the absolute best out of developing young players and moving them on at non-league level, or are there changes that can be made to perhaps get more out of that?
Yeah, I think mass changes have to be made. I think that if you look at what these guys are doing in Dulwich, the players have the best possible chance of coming through because the quality of coaching they're getting as youngsters. The infrastructure is there for a production line for players to come through. What scares me with youth football is not the players, is the coaches. And I see some of these coaches working with these kids and they're giving the kids no chance at all. The infrastructure has to be from top to bottom for these kids to come through. And whilst we've got enthusiastic parents running youth football, whilst I understand why that happens, if the quality of the coaching isn't strong enough, these kids will never make it.
I think like what you're saying now is key, because the last 4 years the academy team compete in the Kent Youth League. They've won it 3 years out of 4. They're competing in the Football Conference Youth League as well. They've won it the last 3 years. Now, for me, if we don't have any boys coming through into the first team, it's a failure.
Yeah.
If we don't have any boys going on loan, playing at lower level clubs, it's a failure.
Yeah.
So our ethos is not about winning. It's about developing the guys to make sure they're ready by the time they're 18 to be able to play senior football. Now, we've had a few exceptions going into our first team. Like this year, Dielang GSME, he's gone over to, he signed for Norwich just after Christmas in the January window. Now, for us, he was maybe the shining light in the academy team, but we've got another 4 or 5 who next year, I'm not saying they'll play at Dulwich's first team, but if we can get them playing in the Ryman 1, the county league below that, by the time they're 20, they can come around maybe Ashley came around. So it's not. I think that the problem we have is that we want to win at all costs in youth football. It's not development.
No,
it's almost winning at all costs.
And I'm going to bring Bob in a minute from the Surrey FA, but first of all, Mark, I'm going to ask you, because you obviously founded your club and you're obviously across all of it as a chairman and a manager. How much emphasis do you put on your coaches at your different age groups? Obviously, you've got a big club there spanning from all across the age groups. How much emphasis do you have on, well, I want to get a really good coach in with this level qualification starting from 12s, 14s?
Yeah, this is one of our key objectives we've been working on the last 2-3 years. It's a fine line, and you have to be quite tough, really, with the youth section, in honesty. You have to decipher the people in it for cheap babysitting versus people in it because they just want to run a football team and give them something to do. And then you have to separate all these different people. And I've had to have conversations where you talk about what level badge have you got, and you know, the FA provide different levels of coaching badges, but of course, I think, you know, I'm not quite sure what the mandatory badges are. Bob can tell us, but if you've got level 1, I'd imagine you can probably read and write, and I don't mean that in the wrong way, but it's something you'll pass. But what we need is coaches of the kids teams that are committed into far exceeding those preliminary badges. And if they're not prepared to do that, then they should just really move aside to people that are. But you are dealing with lots of different characters in youth football, in it for different reasons. That's the battle. But as a club, we're 100% committed to getting it right. But I think it takes some time.
Is it something that you have as a club, and I'll open this out to the floor, is there a minimum level, for example, as a first team manager, that you'd say, OK, my under-18s, my under-16s team, my under-14s, the minimum level I want is a UEFA B licensed coach as the first coach of those teams?
Well, I think first of all, you know, you've got the right people in the room. You've got Paul speaks of infrastructure, Anthony speaks of the centre forward that he's developed. Juniors Academy is the best in non-league football, and Mark has put, you know, not only significant interest but significant finance into building a youth structure at Dorking Wanderers. For me, I'm lucky. I'm lucky because we have people like John Ellis, John Devlin, who have worked really hard in building the youth section at Merstham. We've now extended that. We had it under 21s last season. We've got 2 under 18 teams this year. We've got the under 19s in the Conference Youth Alliance. Those guys take a lot of credit for that. And my point is that, you know, when all's said and done, albeit I would love to be hands-on and build a great youth section, there's only one thing that I'm judged on, and that's winning on a Saturday. And as much as I love to see some 14-year-old kid come through, you know, how many managers say, I love this 14-year-old kid, he's the future of our club, and then the manager gets sacked 18 months later? The manager has to focus on the first team, but trust people to focus on developing their youth setup. John Devlin and John Ellis have done really well there, and like I say, albeit I can't be there all the time, I do go down every Sunday, every now and again. I watch the 21s, I watch the 18s, and that's the sort of age group from 16 onwards where I'll take some sort of interest in, because then we need to decide if these kids are going to get through the system.
And we obviously know that in Premier League football, right the way through the pyramids, that the pressure's there to succeed. And if you're playing the young players, that's why the young English players perhaps don't get played as much, because the pressure is there for the manager to deliver. Is it too simple to say that your youth setup and the players that are coming through, you're only as good as your weakest coach, perhaps?
I really think it just depends on the profile of club, Ben. You know, Junior played for me at Carshalton. Carshalton's completely changed now. A real credit to everybody there. They've put a big emphasis on youth. When Junior and I worked at Carshalton, the profile of the club was you had to win. If I fell out of the top 5 at any point, there was a chance that I would get the sack, because the club was about winning promotion. In other clubs, and Merstham is one, it's now about a different ethos of bringing the kids through whilst you're getting the results. So I really think it depends on the environment in which you work.
Certainly in our own club at Crawley Wasps, we've got UEFA B coaches, and we've got coaches that are at the level 1, and we're very focused at the moment on organic growth of our own coaches from our ladies section. But I would absolutely agree with the sentiment that the quality of coaching, as has been said here, is absolutely critical to the quality of the development of the players coming through. We've got an under 14s side that has a fabulous coach, and they haven't been beaten for 3 years in the league. They were league champions this year. They won both their cups, and they're at a level where we are now pushing them to play in the boys' leagues, such that they can get the right level of competition in the game to ensure that they are continuing to develop as lady footballers alongside the quality coaching that they're getting. I mean, that's a great strength of our club.
Let's put this another way, as we were talking about youth development, and we've got Bob here from the Surrey FA, so we'll bring him in a moment. Do the FA and the local FAs, do they do enough to bring these coaches through? We've talked about how we need coaches to be at a certain level, and you've all agreed that you need to be at a level beyond level 1 and 2 to become a really good coach. Do the FA do enough by subsidising courses, quite expensive courses in this country, to do it? We're still well behind the likes of Spain and Germany for the amount of UEFA B coaches that we have. Do the FA do enough, or do they need to do more? Do the clubs need to do more?
I think that's a great point. I think the FA have got to try and do a little bit more. Obviously, it's difficult. We don't know the constraints, but like you say, on the continent, we're way behind Germany, way behind Spain. And if you look at their infrastructures, you look at the players they produce now. I know we're talking about grassroots, but you need a philosophy at your football club that can enhance youth players to come through. Now, for example, you look at Barcelona, which is an exception, but they have a philosophy that these guys from 8, 9, 10 years old work towards. Now, I understand what Hayden's saying because I'm on the day-to-day with the academy and again with the first team, but I think if your philosophy's right, once they reach that cut-off age Hayden's saying, can they make that step up? But even if they don't make that step up, you develop them to a certain degree for them to actually be better young players.
So let's bring Bob in quickly about that. We're talking about coaching. Does Surrey FA do enough to subsidise courses? Again, it is quite expensive once you go beyond the level 1 and level 2 courses to go and do them. Do you feel like the FAs are doing enough?
Certainly from a county FA perspective, if you look at our website for the coaching courses that are coming up over the next 3 or 4 months, they're all fully booked. There's a demand for them. And they are subsidised. To a certain degree, and it's part of the 4-year strategy of the county is to develop better coaches.
Sorry, Bob.
Yep.
Cameron, mate.
Which is the only way we're going to get the kids at the youngest ages coming through and retaining them in football.
Obviously, the county associations are governed by the FA ultimately, and predominantly. The bottom line is, as a fact, there is more emphasis on infrastructure within the pit, within the ground, than there is actually on the playing surface or the coaching, and that's a fact. So you have to have X amount of seats, you have to have, X amount of hard standing. So as a mandatory matter, you would have to invest X amount in facilities that widely across the country are known that are always in excess of what you need. But in terms of the playing surface, and I know it's probably on the agenda to look at, which is incredibly inconsistent, the lower you go, and in terms of coaching and coaches, there's nothing mandatory there, which I think really benefit football.
So you think that perhaps there should be something put in place whereby if you have to have at least 3 UEFA B coaches in your under 10 to 16 setup?
Yeah, of course, because ultimately, when they say go and get some floodlights, or you can't progress to step 5 or 6, the chairman goes and gets the floodlights and somebody benefits. If they say go and get 3 UEFA B coaches, he'll get 3 UEFA B coaches. It's as simple as that. So that would obviously have a mass benefit.
Just bringing it back to something Junior mentioned about philosophy. We're talking about coaching badges and how important that is. You mentioned a philosophy in the clubs. That's obviously just as important, that when you've got the coaches, we trust that these courses are getting coaches ready at the right levels and preparing you. Something that Hayden and I talked about a few weeks ago when you came on the show is you've got to have the right people delivering the right philosophies, not just about tick boxing the coaching courses.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and there's a lot, especially geographically where we're from as well, over in Dulwich, there's a lot you got to deal with. You're not just a football coach. Yeah. You're father, mentor, brother, so you've got to know how to tap into the kids. And when it's about philosophy, it's nice for whoever's going to coach, for example, that they've got a template and have an idea of what the football club wants, how they want to achieve that. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, it's all great having a coach who can put on great sessions, but it goes deeper than that.
Yeah.
It goes deeper than that.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. I mean, as a club, for the first time, as part of our ambition to develop as a club, we appointed a head coach, and that individual has come out of men's senior football. He's coaching at one of the clubs at a similar level to yourselves. And the point about the philosophy is important, because why have we appointed a head coach? It's to try to ensure that what we do is that we get a consistent level of coaching and quality in our coaching right across our club. We've recognised it's that important to do, that it's one of our absolute top priorities. So that appointment was a critical appointment for the club last year, and it's all part of our efforts as a club to develop the quality of the coaching at Crawley Wasps.
And I'll bring you in here because we talked when we started this about Ashley Addison, who's obviously made the headlines for moving on to Fleetwood and been such a talent, and he's come through your team. Do you place an extra emphasis on the way that your coaches deliver A, their sessions, and B, how the younger teams play? So when you look at the under-18s, the under-16s, do you expect them to adhere to your philosophy even at this level? Is that how far it goes down?
Not at our level, no, to be honest, because obviously the standard of coaching we want to be to a certain level, but sort of tactically or whatever they decide to do in their games, no, because we played a system of three up front. They were very quick. We got the ball forward early. If you haven't got three players up front to do that, why bother doing it? We won't be doing that this season. Now we've lost Ashley. But what I will go back to, and sorry if it's repeating it, but from our point of view at our club, I mean, we're all volunteers at our club, which is probably pretty similar to a lot of the clubs. As it gets higher, it gets more, more difficult. But sometimes, I'm happy that my two coaches have turned up on Tuesday night to do a session. It's got to be enjoyable, most importantly, but it has got to be to a good standard. And we'd love to get together an under-19s and under-21s and under-23s, but for us that comes back to finances and facilities that we haven't got. We'd love to. We've probably got to a level now, in my opinion, using our local boys, and we're so lucky to have loyal lads that have been at the club for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But if you want to develop and go further, you need to go further in your development, and we've probably hit a wall now of as far as we can go without facilities and finances to push us further as a club.